guys? It's your boys Wokey back with another Chris Watts video, and from the continuation from yesterday's video, this is part 2. We're not going to get into much of it, but before we go any further, make sure you guys are subscribed to my YouTube channel by hitting that wiper icon down at the bottom right, hit the bell icon next to it, so when I do post videos like this one, you'll get that little ring notification that I posted the video, and then you guys know what to do. And then make sure you guys go over to Behind the Crime. Go give them some love, subscribe, comment, like, and share. We are getting them closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, and I like to see another channel make it to that monetization. So go give them some love, and without further ado, let's get into the continuation. Maybe if I actually turn on the volume.
It was bizarre, but not unprecedented. It happens with many high-profile killers. Ted Bundy, Scott Peterson, now Chris Watts. In fact, the volume of his mail became so heavy at one point that it had to be screened before reaching his cell. Some letters were so graphic, sexually or violently, they were flagged as psychological risk indicators. And then there were the angry letters. Some arrived in red ink. Others came with threats, photos of the girls, or Bible verses circled in blood. A few contained only one word, repeated over and over, monster. Chris said nothing about those. He kept his head down. He prayed louder, but everyone knew he read them. Because behind the walls of Dodge Correctional, no punishment could compare to this. Being remembered. Every day. For the worst thing you ever did. For Shanann's family, the Razucheks, the pain didn't end with Chris's confession. It only deepened. Frank and Sandra Razuchek lost not only their daughter, but their 2 granddaughters, an unborn grandson. Their grief was layered, not just loss, but betrayal. Chris had lived in their home. He'd vacationed with them. He called them Mom and Dad. And then he took everything from them. In court, Frank stood up during sentencing and read a statement that silenced the room. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. His voice cracked. He said he had nightmares, that he still waited for Bella and CeCe to come running into his arms. Sandra, Shanann's mother, couldn't bring herself to speak publicly for months. When she finally did, she said,
she's got a great YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out Sandy Rusek, I suggest you go over there, give her some love. You know the deal. Because she'd make some delicious food. I've seen some of her stuff. I'm like, can I have a piece through the like the screen? Give me some of that. I'd love to have some of that food.
I forgave you, Chris. But that doesn't mean I'll ever understand. The Razucheks moved out of North Carolina for a time, seeking privacy. They were harassed online by conspiracy theorists. People claimed Shanann was abusive, or that the murders were staged.
There is no evidence of any of that. I think it's ridiculous that they sit there and say that.
Some even accuse the family of being paid actors. To protect their mental health, they filed a wrongful death lawsuit, not for money, but to establish legal closure. They won the case. A judge awarded them $6 million in damages. Chris would never be able to pay.
I didn't think it was that much money.
But the ruling symbolically stripped him of any legal right to profit from the story. The Razucheks visited...
That's why. So if he tries to make a buck, it goes straight to the Ruseks. Dang.
Shanann's grave often. They held annual candlelight vigils. They wore purple, her favorite color, on the anniversary of her death. And they kept her Facebook page online. Not to relive the trauma, but to preserve her voice. They said they wanted the world to remember who she was. A mother, a fighter, and a woman who loved fierce.
The videos that I've watched on her YouTube stuff and everything, even though she's gone, she's still motivating people, including myself. I've continued to work better and to try to be a better person, not only for myself, but for others, so that they can enjoy their lives. And that's why I started YouTube, is because I wanted to, one, get to 100K of subscribers, and the other one is to make people laugh and enjoy their lives and have somebody that they can turn to because they might be alone. And I can hopefully fill that void. And Shanann kind of spoke to me, and I just feel like she gave me some sort of purpose. I mean, it's not the only one. There's other people like my father and God and all that stuff, but she's one of those people that have motivated me to be a better person.
Fiercely and never gave up on her family. But behind the strength was bottomless pain, because grief, for them, wasn't a season. It was a sentence. The Watts name, once just another entry in a suburban phone book, became synonymous with betrayal, horror, and the
If you type in Watts in Google, go straight to him.
destruction of a family from within. Chris's parents, Cindy and Ronnie Watts, were thrust into the spotlight alongside the Razucheks, but their response was very different. From the
Painful.
beginning, Cindy Watts struggled to accept the version of events laid out by police and prosecutors. She claimed Chris had been manipulated. She
Manipulated by NK.
suggested Shanann was controlling and that the relationship had been toxic on both sides. This stance brought deep
It's called a divorce, or try to reconcile with each other and make things better first. Then, if it doesn't work, separation, divorce. Where does murder come into this? Never should it come across anybody's mind.
tension and public backlash. To many, it felt like victim blaming. To others, it sounded like denial. The Watts family became fractured. They stopped speaking to the Rucheks. They avoided the media for long periods. And when they did speak, it was carefully worded, often focused more on Chris's emotional state than the lives he had taken. Still, they visited him. They sent letters. Cindy gave a televised interview in which she said, "He's not a monster. He's my son. I still love him."
Can't he
It
be
was a
both?
complex dynamic. Love for a child tangled with revulsion at his choices. A mother trying to separate the man she raised from the killer he became. Public reaction was harsh. Petitions circulated to bar the family from profiting off interviews or appearances. YouTube channels dissected their every word. Some sympathized. Parents unable to give up on a child. Others were furious, demanding silence from anyone defending Chris. What remained of the Watts name was now filtered through a single lens. A man who murdered his entire family to chase a fantasy. The house on Saratoga Trail sat empty. Eventually, it was foreclosed. Neighbors avoided it. Tourists drove by to take photos.
For 5 years.
In the years that followed, the Watts name faded from headlines, but stayed alive in the algorithm. A cautionary tale resurfaced by documentaries, reaction videos, and hashtags. There would be no redemption arc, no rebranding, only a legacy scorched into the memory of a community and a country. When the dust settled and the evidence was laid bare, one question echoed louder than any other. Why did he do it? Chris Watts didn't fit the mold of a traditional killer. No history of violence, no criminal record, no substance abuse. He was a husband, a father, an employee with steady work and a clean image. And yet, he committed one of the most incomprehensible crimes imaginable. Not in a fit of rage, but with methodical planning. Psychologists, criminologists, and profilers dove into the case, trying to understand what lay beneath the surface of his smile. What they found was not a monster in the cinematic sense, but something more chilling: emptiness. Chris displayed traits aligned with covert narcissism. He sought validation not through aggression, but through image. The image of the perfect family, the loyal husband, the fit father. He was addicted to approval, not connection. But when that
Follower.
image cracked, when Shanann's pregnancy clashed with his affair, his finances, and his craving for control, he began to see his family not as people, but as obstacles. He didn't explode, he withdrew, and then he erased. Experts noted his emotional flatness, his refusal to accept responsibility in the early interviews, his willingness to lie directly to grieving parents, to reporters, to the police, not out of panic, but as a form of preservation. Dr. Phil,
I mean, the guy was gloating, saying that he could lie to his teachers about going to China. He's like, I'm a good liar. Well, Tammy kind of fooled that one there, my dude.
who consulted with law enforcement on the case, called Chris pathologically passive. Not someone who kills in rage, but someone who kills to eliminate discomfort. Even his own attorneys were disturbed by the lack of visible grief. They described him as cooperative, quiet,
They told him that he needed to show emotion because he was not showing emotion enough.
and empty. When asked why he didn't simply divorce Shanann, his answer was telling, I didn't want to hurt anyone. But of course, he did, irrevocably.
He didn't want to hurt anybody, so instead he murders them.
And that contradiction is at the core of who he is. A man so conflict averse that he would rather destroy his entire world than confront it honestly. It wasn't about hate, it was about escape. The Watts family left behind no last words, no handwritten letters, no final goodbyes. But in the age of smartphones and social media, they left something else, a digital archive. Thousands of photos, videos, messages, calendar entries, health app logs, search histories, GPS pings, text messages that now read like a countdown. It's all still there. Fragments of a family that once seemed whole. Moments frozen in
But missing puzzle pieces.
time, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Shanann's Facebook profile remains online as a memorial. Visitors can scroll through birthday parties, Thrive promotions, family vacations, and dance recitals. Each post is now haunted, each caption layered with painful hindsight. One post shows Bella hugging Chris, her arms tight around his neck. The caption reads, She loves her daddy more than anything in the world. Another features CeCe in a princess dress, blowing kisses at the camera. Shanann had written, My little firecracker, never a dull moment. And then there are the videos. Chris building snowmen with the girls, Chris unwrapping presents, Chris grinning awkwardly as Shanann films yet another update for her business. To the average viewer, it's ordinary. But for those who know how the story ends, it's unbearable. Investigators use these archives not just as evidence, but as behavioral timelines. They plotted Chris's emotional withdrawal. They saw Shanann's growing anxiety. They watched the family dynamic shift, not in dramatic bursts, but in micro movements. The way Chris smiled, the speed at which he replied to messages, the tone in his voice. Even his Apple Health data recorded suspicious things. Steps logged at 4 a.m., the day of the murders, when Chris claimed he was asleep.
I want to look
The
at
truth wasn't
those.
hidden in a single clue, buried in patterns. And those patterns were only visible because of the archive. Digital ghosts don't knock. They don't cry, but they never go away. They sit in cloud backups, court exhibits, and hard drives, replaying over and over again, waiting for someone to ask, What didn't we see the first time? Years have passed since the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico. And yet, the story of Chris Watts continues to echo, not just in headlines, but in search bars, timelines, and YouTube recommendations. The case has become a permanent fixture in the digital landscape. Search family killer, and his name appears first. Watch one true crime video, and the algorithm feeds you 10 more featuring his face. This wasn't just a crime, it became content. There are hundreds of YouTube documentaries, TikTok theories, reaction videos, and podcast episodes dissecting every moment. Some channels re-upload police body cam footage, slowed down and zoomed in. Others compare Shanann's last texts to Chris's surveillance video movements. Every micro expression is interpreted. Every word is time-stamped. And the comments, never stop. I can't believe he smiled like that. You can see it in his eyes. She deserved better. For Shanann's family, the internet is both a curse and a preservation tool. Her videos are still watched by strangers. Her voice, so full of energy and love, lives on in the cloud. Bella and CeCe's smiles are reposted weekly by fan memorial pages. But with that permanence comes darkness. Conspiracy theorists continue to publish lies. Some claim Shanann orchestrated it all. Others insist the girls were never real. One YouTube channel even staged a fake ghost hunt outside the Watts home, trying to contact spirits for clicks. The Razucheks have pleaded with the public, let our girls rest. Stop turning our trauma into entertainment. But online, there is no statute of limitations. Every repost, every algorithmic suggestion reanimates the tragedy. And for those drawn to this case, whether out of empathy, horror, or fascination, the danger lies in forgetting that this isn't a story. It was a life. It was 4 lives and one irreversible choice. 1. The murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico shattered more than just a family. They altered how we talk about domestic violence, how we view perfect families online, and how we understand the quiet face of danger. Before Chris Watts, the archetype of the family annihilator was often imagined as explosive, abusive, unhinged.
Scott Peterson.
But Chris didn't fit that mold. He smiled. He blended in. He posed for photos with the very people he planned to kill. That contradiction forced society
They say he's the silent murderer or the quiet murderer.
to re-examine its assumptions. It asked uncomfortable questions. How many men like Chris live among us? How many women sense danger but doubt themselves because there are no bruises?
Probably a lot.
How many families are hiding behind curated filters and birthday cake smiles? For advocates of domestic abuse prevention, the Watts case became a rallying point. It reminded the public that control and emotional detachment can be just as deadly as rage. That violence doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Legislation in Colorado was proposed to increase resources for emotional abuse survivors. Law enforcement agencies updated training on risk assessment, even for individuals with no history of violence. Schools and churches held seminars about warning signs that don't leave marks. True crime, as a genre, changed too. Content creators began issuing disclaimers. Some took steps to block conspiracy comments. Others invited survivors to share their own stories in response. The case shifted the tone from entertainment to remembrance. For the Razucheks, no change in public discourse could ever compensate for what was lost. But they hoped the story would save someone else. And that's where this documentary leaves you.
I feel that it saved a lot of people.
Not just with horror, but with responsibility. To believe people when they say something feels wrong, to look beyond the smile, to ask questions, even when the answers feel uncomfortable, to never confuse the absence of bruises with the presence of safety. Because families don't always fall apart. Sometimes they're destroyed by the one person who was supposed to protect them. Chris Watts didn't snap. He plotted. He rehearsed. And for a short time, he nearly pulled it off. His lie began before the murders. He constructed an emotional narrative for himself and others that he was the victim in a loveless marriage, that Shanann was controlling, that he was a good father, just overwhelmed. In private, he was laying groundwork, deleting messages, hiding his affair, avoiding confrontation. In public, he smiled for the camera. After the murders, he moved with calculated precision. He texted Shanann's phone after he had already killed her, trying to create a breadcrumb trail of false concern. He called her friends and claimed she'd gone missing. He let her friend Nicole into the house and pretended to be confused. He stood in front of news cameras, begging for her return. If you're out there, just come home. All while knowing exactly where she was, exactly what he'd done. The body cam footage from that day shows Chris pacing, checking his phone, making small talk. His performance was chilling in its normalcy, but it wasn't perfect. When detectives noticed inconsistencies in his story, small timing issues, vague answers, they didn't pounce. They waited. They asked him to take a polygraph. They played back surveillance footage. They interviewed friends and neighbors. Each piece of evidence chipped away at his facade. The turning point came when he learned that his truck's GPS data and neighbors' camera footage didn't match his version.
But what about NK though? Because hers didn't match her version of events.
The lie, so carefully constructed, began to unravel. But even in confession, Chris minimized. He blamed Shanann for the death of the children before admitting to the full truth. And even then, he delivered the truth only when the alternative, trial and exposure,
Failed.
became unbearable. Chris didn't just kill his family. He built a lie large enough to stand inside. And for 72 hours, the world almost believed him. For 72 hours, Chris Watts walked free. He slept in his own bed, he ate meals, he gave interviews. He watched TV while the bodies of his wife and children lay buried in a remote oil field. That gap between crime and consequence is one of the most disturbing elements of this case. Because if just one element had gone differently, he might have gotten away with it. If Nicole Atkinson hadn't insisted on a welfare check, if the neighbor hadn't shared his surveillance footage, if police hadn't acted quickly on inconsistencies, Chris might still be walking the halls of his home, playing the role of a grieving father. His plan wasn't brilliant, but it was just plausible enough. He believed the oil tanks would destroy the evidence. He thought a shallow grave in a field would be missed. He assumed people would believe his wife had taken the girls and left. And for a few hours, some did. His own father
They still
hesitated to
do.
believe the worst. News reporters broadcasted his appeals without challenge. Social media speculated, some even blaming Shanann for being too intense. But then, the digital trail began to speak. GPS, phone pings, deleted texts recovered. Search histories, camera footage, body language. Piece by piece, Chris's version collapsed under the weight of truth. What's most terrifying isn't that Chris Watts murdered his family. It's that he thought he could lie his way out of it. And for a time, he nearly
Thought
did.
He thought
His
he
crime
could.
wasn't just an act of violence. It was an
I think also with him lying the way he did, I think he was gonna believe his own lies and beat the polygraph test. Some people out there can fool the polygraph test by believing their own lies. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen, but it's possible. It's rare, but it's possible.
act of erasure. Not only did he try to kill his family, he tried to rewrite reality. But reality fought back. Through data, through persistence, through the voices of those who refused to be silenced. Chris Watts almost disappeared into his lie. But the world was watching. In every true crime case, there comes a moment where the audience rewinds the clock, looks for the missed exit, the split in the road where everything might have changed. For the Watts family, that moment might have been August 7th, 2018. Shanann texted a friend, "I'm thinking of separating when I get back." She was exhausted. She felt unloved. And for the first time, she wasn't just worried. She was ready to act. That decision, the possibility of leaving, might have saved her life. But it also may have accelerated what happened. Because in Chris's mind, Shanann leaving wasn't just rejection. It was exposure. If she filed for divorce, the affair would come out. The finances would collapse. His image, that carefully curated life, would fall apart. And to Chris Watts, that was worse than prison. He wasn't trying to escape abuse. He was trying to preserve his fantasy. So when Shanann came home from her business trip, already emotionally distant, already considering separation, Chris panicked. He couldn't lose control. Not of her, not of the girls, not of the narrative. People who reviewed Shanann's texts and call history saw a woman on the edge of a decision, but still hesitating, still hoping, still trying. Had she left sooner? Maybe. Had someone intervened earlier? Maybe. Had Chris just admitted the affair and walked away? Maybe. But Chris Watts wasn't interested in endings that left others standing. He didn't want to be divorced. He wanted to be new. And that desire for erasure, not
He didn't want to pay for child support. That was a big one.
resolution, was what made this story inevitable. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. It's the question that lingers long after the headlines fade. Could this have been stopped?
Yes.
From the outside, the Watts family looked functional, even ideal. They owned a home, held steady jobs, posted smiling pictures on social media. There were no police calls, no obvious signs of danger. But hindsight reveals subtle warnings. Chris became emotionally unavailable. His behavior changed. Less affection, more time at the gym, constant phone use. Shanann noticed, but didn't know where the line was between marital drift and something darker. Could a therapist have seen the signs? Could a friend have said the right thing? Possibly.
I mean, there was a lot of friends that didn't think that there was anything going on because they looked like they said he was acting normal. But then there was a few friends that were like, "There's like nothing inside his eyes. It's empty. It's scary. It's terrifying." So who knows?
But Chris wasn't threatening. He wasn't violent. He was passive, quiet, agreeable. That's what made him so dangerous. Experts now classify family annihilators like Chris into psychological categories. He fits the anomic and self-righteous types, those who kill not out of hatred, but to escape perceived failure. They see their family as extensions of themselves. When control is threatened, they eliminate. In other words, he didn't snap, he planned. And that makes prevention almost impossible without systemic tools. Shanann's text did reveal fear,
So he pretty much murdered them for the reset button.
but she didn't think he'd hurt her. She thought he'd leave. That's why modern domestic violence training now emphasizes pre-violence indicators: withdrawal, secretive behavior, financial secrecy, emotional isolation. Since the Watts case, some states have explored adding coercive control to legal definitions of abuse, behavior that may not be violent, but is still dangerous. But no law, no therapist, no neighbor could have stopped what happened unless Chris wanted to stop himself. And he didn't. So the question shifts from, why didn't someone stop him, to something more painful.
No one knew.
Why didn't he stop himself? And the answer is just as hollow as the man who gave none.
NK.
2825 Saratoga Trail still stands. The beige two-story home with its neat lawn and brick accents
It's
looks
white
like
now.
every other house on the block. But it's not. For those who know, it's not a home. It's a grave. After the murders, the house was vacated, sealed, and placed into foreclosure. No one stepped inside without permission. Neighbors avoided looking at it. Children crossed the street to walk past it. The mortgage was never paid again. Technically, it still belongs to Chris Watts, but no bank wants it, and no buyer will take it. The property has gone up for auction multiple times. Each time, the listing is withdrawn. Too much media attention, too much history. Even when listed anonymously, it never sells. Real estate experts call it a stigmatized property, one where value is damaged not by structure, but by memory. This isn't cosmetic. It's psychological. No one wants to cook dinner where Shanann.
I mean, look at the Amityville whorehouse. That sucker went for what was it, $1.4 million? Because of what happened inside there.
Took her last steps. No one wants to sleep in the room where Bella and CeCe were last tucked into bed. No one wants to live above a floor soaked in silence. There are rumors that the house is haunted, cursed, a magnet for bad luck. But it doesn't need ghosts. It has Google. Every person who types in the address will find the story. Photos, crime scene diagrams, news footage, the smiling family on the front porch. Some say the home should be demolished. Others say it should be preserved, a monument to what was lost. But for now, it just sits. Lights off, mailbox empty. A perfect facade.
This must have been made a while back because there is a family in there now. I'm not posting the pictures that I received because one, I didn't ask for them. Not saying that the person sent them to me that I didn't want them, but it's cool that you're in Colorado and stuff like that. It's just I don't want to see the house anymore, the way it is or who's in it. Let them be. Let them live on. Let them try to make that house a home. The couple that was in there after Chris and Shanann, they went through their own issues. I don't know if it's coincidental, but it was put on the market again. It was on the market for a few months and then finally sold. Somebody's living there now. Leave them alone. Don't go to the house. Stay away from it. It's like, why keep going there and taking pictures? Like, enough is enough.
Facade over irreversible violence. And the door no one will open. For those closest to the Watts family, the aftermath didn't end in court. It began there. Frank and Sandra Razuchek still wake up to reminders, news alerts, documentaries, YouTube thumbnails, TikTok edits.
And don't be going to the Rusek's house. Don't be going to the Watts house. Don't be going to the graveyard. Like, leave it alone. Like, I don't know why we're going to all these different places. I think it's absurd to go to a crime scene or the people that were involved. What is that going to do? You're just harassing.
They didn't choose to become public figures, but grief gave them no option. They've spoken about the nightmares, about seeing Shanann's smile on a screen and remembering what it cost, about hearing Bella's voice in a video and wishing they had one more moment, about CeCe's laugh echoing through old birthday footage. They've tried to protect Shanann's legacy, but it's a fight against an algorithm. Every time someone clicks, it comes back. They live in a world where their daughter's death is repackaged as entertainment. They've asked for empathy, for restraint, for silence, but the internet does not forget, and it rarely forgives. Chris Watts will die behind bars.
That's what makes
But
me
the
crazy.
Razucheks, they live with the sentence. And for them, the punishment is endless. There's no parole from memory, no release from what if, no early exit from loss. They've turned their energy toward awareness campaigns, toward speaking to domestic violence survivors, toward reminding others that emotional abuse is real. That control doesn't always come with bruises, that monsters can look like dads in family photos. They don't want revenge. They want prevention. They want people to listen to the quiet signs. They want women to trust their intuition. They want children to grow up in homes where love doesn't mean fear. And most of all, they want the names Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico to mean more than how they died. They want them remembered for how they lived. She was born
How they
Shanann
were.
Catherine Zhuchek on January 10th, 1984, in New Jersey. A firstborn, a fighter, a daughter who grew up knowing what it meant to persevere. As a teenager, she was diagnosed with lupus, a chronic illness that would have broken many, but not Shanann. She adjusted her life around it. She built a career, bought her first house by 25, and later started her own business.
She made her first house by 25.
When she met Chris, she thought she had found her peace. They married in 2012. She moved to Colorado. She built a home, both physically and emotionally, a space filled with warmth, goals, planners, schedules, and unconditional love. Shanann was passionate. She loved hard. She filmed everything, not for vanity, but for connection. Her videos weren't performances. They were invitations, a way to share joy, routines, and the chaos of motherhood. She worked as a brand ambassador for Thrive.
And I know a lot of moms that do this exact same thing, if not more, and that their family doesn't get murdered. Way to go, Nicole, because you're the one that screwed it up.
She believed in helping people feel better, live better, think better. But privately, she was exhausted. Raising two daughters, managing finances, sensing her husband slip away, and still, she smiled. She held it all together. Those who knew her said she never let her illness slow her down. She was the first to volunteer, the first to celebrate others, the one who always remembered birthdays, anniversaries, milestones. Even in her final hours, returning home after a long work trip, pregnant, drained, she was texting friends to check in on them. She believed in love. She believed in redemption. She believed her marriage could be saved. She was wrong, but her story isn't just how it ended. It's how she lived, with fire, with focus, with love. And that's what she deserves to be remembered for. Bella Marie Watts was born on December 17th, 2013. She was bright, gentle, and old-souled for her age. She loved to sing, especially
I would say, yeah, she does got an old soul for her age. She seemed like a mom already to her little sister. She took care of that little girl or her little sister companion so very well. She was gonna be, she was would have been the most amazing big sister.
Disney songs and would often belt out Let It Go with dramatic flair. Her favorite colors were pink and purple. She liked puzzles, story time, and cuddling with her mom. Friends said Bella was the observer, the one who noticed everything. She watched people carefully. She asked thoughtful questions. She always wanted to understand. And in the end, she understood more than anyone could bear. Celeste Catherine Watts, or CeCe, was born on July 17th, 2015. She was pure energy, bold, loud, and funny. Where Bella was cautious, CeCe was fearless. She climbed everything, danced to any song, and laughed like she knew the punchline before it was told. She adored her big sister and followed her everywhere. To Bella, she was a tornado. To Shanann, she was her little firecracker. Together, the girls were inseparable. They shared a room, toys, secrets. Their bond was obvious in every photo. Arms wrapped around each other, matching pajamas, bedtime routines filled with giggles. Then, there was Nico Watts,
I miss those
never
days.
born. but still remembered. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant when she was killed. She had already chosen his name, already announced his arrival, already bought him clothes. Nico never took a breath, never cried, never opened his eyes. But he was loved. He had a place in the family, a room waiting, a name embroidered on a onesie. 4 names, each one stolen, each one buried beneath a headline. But they are more than victims. They were a family. And long after the clicks fade and the views disappear, their names remain Shanann, Bella, CeCe, Nico. Not for how they died, but for how deeply they were loved. Years later, people are still drawn to the story of Chris Watts, not because they enjoy it, but because they don't understand it. It's not just a murder case, it's a paradox. A smiling husband, a cheerful home, 2 perfect
A lot of it has to do with NK.
daughters, and then annihilation. We keep coming back to the footage, the interviews, the texts. We watch them again and again, hoping something new will stand out. Some moment that explains the turn, the fracture, the moment a man goes from ordinary to monstrous. We look at Chris's face in the body cam footage, his calm voice, his easy gestures. We tell ourselves we would have seen through it, that we would have known. But would we? The truth is, monsters don't always look like monsters. And love doesn't always mean safety. We're fascinated because the Watts story is uncomfortably close to home. It's not a back alley crime, not a shadowy figure in the night. It's bedtime stories, school photos, grocery lists. That's what makes it terrifying. Not the brutality, but the banality. The idea that this could have been anyone, that darkness can live inside the ordinary. This case forces us to confront how little we know about the people around us, about the people closest to
True.
us, about ourselves. And in doing so, it dares us to stop looking away. Because maybe if we understand this, we'll see the next one coming.
But then others have said that, oh, this case can make people paranoid or make people too cautious. And it's all with interpretation, all how you take it. Don't take it literal where you have to like watch your loved one and make sure that just look out for the signs.
Now that you've heard it all, the timeline, the texts, the lies, the loss, one question remains. What will you do with this story? Will it be just another tab closed? Another documentary watched, filed away, forgotten? Or will you carry it? Will you remember Shanann not just as a victim, but as a mother who fought for her marriage and loved without limits? Will you think of Bella, singing from the back seat, eyes wide with wonder? And CeCe, fearless and full of light? Will you honor Nico, who never got to take his first breath?
All I see when I see CeCe's when she goes, yay! Like with her legs when she finds out she's going to be a bigger sister to Nico.
Because stories like this shouldn't end with entertainment. They should end with awareness. Awareness that not all abusers raise their voices. That emotional distance can be a warning sign. That behind curated photos, someone might be suffering in silence. Maybe it means checking in on a friend who's been pulling away. Maybe it means believing someone the first time they say, something doesn't feel right. Maybe it means teaching our sons that silence isn't strength, and our daughters that control isn't love. Maybe it just means remembering, deeply, intentionally, that these were real people. Shanann, Bella, CeCe, Nico. We say their names not because of how they died, but because we refuse to let them be erased. The Watts case doesn't give us closure. It doesn't offer
This guy's got away with words, I tell you what.
peace. It offers a mirror. And what we do with that reflection is up to us. Some crimes fade, this one didn't. The murder of Shanann Watts and her children didn't just dominate headlines. It redefined how true crime is consumed. Within weeks, the case had become one of the most searched criminal stories in modern internet history. Not because it was the most violent, but because it was the most visible. Body cam footage, interrogation room clips, polygraph sessions, Facebook videos, Ring
Ridiculous.
doorbell footage. All of it. Raw, accessible, and uploaded for the world to watch.
Then redacted.
Never before had a family annihilation case unfolded in such real time, with such intimacy. People didn't just read about it. They watched it happen, and it changed everything. YouTube exploded with reaction videos. Commentary channels gained millions of views breaking down Chris's eye movements, Shanann's tone of voice, the girl's behavior in family vlogs. Some creators built entire channels around the Watts case, analyzing, speculating, dramatizing. Netflix released American Murder, The Family Next Door, built entirely from existing footage. No narrator, no reenactments, just raw truth. Edited like a thriller. It became one of the most watched documentaries in platform history. Millions saw Shanann smile, Chris lie, and Bella dance, all in chronological order, all real. This wasn't just content, it was voyeurism wrapped in justice. The audience became the analyst. The viewer became the prosecutor. And with that came a new dynamic. The public was no longer just watching true crime, they were building it.
They're trying to stop
Forums formed. Reddit threads dissected footage, frame by frame. TikTok creators reenacted police interviews. Instagram accounts shared aesthetic edits of Shanann and the girls, layered with sad music and candle emojis. And soon, lines blurred between journalism and drama, between empathy and exploitation, between remembering victims and monetizing them. The Watts case wasn't just a tragedy. It was a template, and it raised a new question. When crime becomes content, who really owns the story? In the age of algorithm-driven media, the Watts case didn't end in the courtroom. It entered the comments section. Almost instantly, people online chose sides. Some focused on Chris, dissecting his behavior, labeling him a narcissist, a covert sociopath, a coward. Others turned on Shanann. She was too controlling. She emasculated him. I could see this coming. It wasn't just cruel, it was dangerous. Victim blaming became viral content. Creators uploaded debunking videos claiming Shanann was emotionally abusive, using clips from her Facebook to frame her as aggressive, overbearing, or fake. The same footage she posted to promote her wellness brand, footage that once brought her clients, was weaponized to rewrite her memory.
Stupid.
Her legacy was now filtered through clickbait titles and monetized thumbnails. Meanwhile, people treated Chris not just as a killer, but as a character. They studied him like a documentary subject. They rewatched the polygraph video as if it were an episode of Breaking Bad. They commented on his posture, his voice, his clothes. He became content. Some sent him letters in prison. Others posted thirst trap edits. A few wrote fan fiction. This wasn't justice. It was spectacle. The danger wasn't just in remembering. It was in how people chose to remember. When crime becomes viral, so does distortion, and the lines between truth, myth, and entertainment blur. The Rasuchek family spoke out repeatedly. They begged YouTubers to stop profiting off their pain. They asked for basic dignity, but their voices were often drowned by algorithmic noise.
Let's say if the Ruseks came to me and told me to stop, I would stop.
This is the shadow of true crime in the digital age. When viewers become editors, when grief becomes a genre, when the court of public opinion replaces actual justice, and when the story of 4 murdered lives becomes a trending topic. In 2018, there was no law that could have stopped what happened at 2825 Saratoga Trail. No restraining order to issue, no red flag to raise, because Chris Watts never raised his voice, never hit anyone, never made a threat. On paper, he wasn't dangerous, and that's the problem. The criminal justice system, like much of society, is built to react to visible violence. Bruises, injuries, 911 calls. It wasn't built to detect the danger of a man who simply detached. Shanann told friends she felt him slipping. She wrote, "He doesn't touch me. He doesn't talk to me. I don't recognize him anymore." But there was nowhere to take those fears. No crime had been committed. No law had been broken. In hindsight, it's obvious. He stopped engaging with the kids. He lied about work.
I can't remember, but I think there was one state that's trying to make adultery like illegal. I can't remember which one it is, but I don't know if it went through 100%. But something's got to be done about adultery because there's a lot of it going around.
He lost interest in shared finances. He spent hours on his phone with someone else. He was planning a life, just not the one they thought. The tragedy revealed a blind spot. Emotional abandonment isn't illegal, but in rare cases, it's the first step toward annihilation. Domestic violence experts began to push for changes. Coercive control laws, new screening methods in therapy, and wellness checkups. Training for police to look beyond shouting matches. But in 2018, the system simply wasn't equipped. Chris slipped through, not because he was clever, but because no one was looking for a killer with a soft voice and a polite smile. No record, no warning. And then, everything gone. This wasn't just a failure of one man. It was a failure of expectation, of what danger looks like, of what violence sounds like, of who society thinks a killer is. And until that expectation shifts, there will be more families like the Watts.
I hope not. Very well done video. I'm not going to lie, this guy did a fantastic job. I hope to see more content from other cases and so forth through this channel. Please let me know your guys' thoughts down below, of course. It's so upsetting because you want to find the truth. You know that there's evidence out there that has maybe not been looked at all or removed. And like you feel it in your bones, you feel it in your soul, and you can't get it to come out. Because nobody wants to do anything with this case. The DA's got it under lock and key. And it's like, just open it. Let us see what's in there. Prove the innocence of NK or prove the guiltiness of her. That is why that case remains publicly enhanced. Better for the lack of words. Again, let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Again, the link is in the below, but it is called Behind the Crime, True Crime. Get them to hopefully 1,000 subscribers. But again, we'll see you guys in the next video. Please take care, be safe, and as always, keep nerding on, and we will see you guys in the next video.